What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, let's do a little thing we call the mailbag. At John Middlekauff is the Instagram. Fire in those DMs. Get your question answered here. Little thing we call the podcast. Let's pull up Instagram. And let's start with Scott. Former sports radio host up in Canada. I smile every time I hear you talk about the state of that medium. Unlike you, I've moved out of the industry, but I really enjoy hearing the very best honor the craft. And you certainly do. I appreciate the kind words, Scott. Question, as a Niner fan, 35 years. It seems like there are elite defensive coaches. Flores, Schwartz in Cleveland, Spags in Kansas City, McDonald, Seattle, Baltimore, that have figured out Kyle's offense. Flores smothered Slowick, a Kyle guy, and the Texans early in the season too. Is this a pivotal time in Kyle's tenure aside from some of the players who will soon age out? Is he facing the biggest adjustment of his scheme in his career to date? All the best. That's a good question. You know, one thing I've always thought that those coordinators, I would say, throw Kyle off his game is when he can't dominate on the ground. Like, his pass game, to me, is more tied to the run game than any coach in the league. Like, you watch Buffalo, they're a better team now because their running game's good. But they can function no problem just slinging the pill around. Right? Rodgers, Mahomes, when the offensive weapons were better, they can just spread it out and play that way. And their coach is comfortable doing that. Kyle's really not. Like, Kyle wants to rush it, I would say, at minimum, you know, in a perfect world, if there are 65 plays, he'd be like close to 40 carries and give or take 25 attempts from his quarterback. So a perfect day would be 38 carries between his running backs, which is mainly probably 28 for McCaffrey, 6-7 for the next guy, a couple quarterback runs. And then Purdy would be like, I don't know, 21 or 26. And, you know, 5 to 8 of those are those boot action rollouts. How many times, I can think of 2 off the top of my head, did he called the play action boot that Purdy turns around and there's either a defensive end, a linebacker, the nickel corner, whoever that's coming up the field in his face? It's like, guys, they know that's coming now. It doesn't work like it once did. When it works, it's awesome. And it feels like, you know, Mike Tyson in his prime, giving you a jab to the stomach, giving you a right to the chin. You duck, you're getting an uppercut. You have no clue where it's coming from. But yesterday, it's not like the run game was anemic. Between McCaffrey and Mason, I think they ran for over 90 yards, the two of them. But I think Kyle's, for his offense to really hum, he needs to be like in the 130, 140s with his running backs. And that extra little potent 30, 40 yards makes a big difference in his pass calling. And yesterday, like, Deebo right now looks terrible. He looks slow. Kittle being injured, and again, he looked awesome on last Sunday. So then he gets injured. I don't know if he was injured at practice. I didn't even watch. I was just I went on with Colin right after the Niner game ended, so I haven't even seen Kyle's press conference. But got hurt at practice, got hurt at the end of that game. That's a big loss. I mean, Kittle's been awesome this year, so it takes away the middle of the field. Deebo is not a positive, and you basically just riding Jawan Jennings in the passing game. And Ricky Pearsall, who's a rookie, who got shot 3 months ago. Offense looks terrible. It really does. And the crazy thing, if you told me the offense looks terrible, I'd be like, Purdy regressing? I'm like, nah, actually, Purdy looks pretty good. I mean, Purdy feels like the least of their worries. And I don't know. This is hard. No one acts like they know more football than Kyle. And he gets very defensive sometimes with stuff like that. Like, Kyle, we think you're smart. You've been around football your whole life. It's your life's work. Like, we get it. This offense is your family's baby. I'm all for it. I've seen it work wonders in big games. But, like, we got to throw other pitches. Eventually, once they kind of dial in on your great fastball, I mean, you got to develop a curveball or something off speed. Hey, John, I'm currently watching Bengals and Chargers. He sent me this afternoon. With 6 minutes left in the first half, I cannot help but notice how dialed in Justin Herbert is. Through the air and with his legs. Collinsworth was like orgasming in the booth watching him play football. I know there are a lot of variables to consider. Playoff success, weapons, coaching scheme, division. But is Herbert better than Hurts? Both are big and physical, but Herbert's arm definitely has more juice. In my opinion, is a better all-around passer. I will admit, Hurts throws a pretty deep ball, but Herbert just seems to be a more complete talent at the position. Even when Staley was coaching the Chargers. To even take it a step further, how does Herbert stack up against Burrow? I talked about it in the podcast yesterday. There are 5 elite guys in their prime. Jalen Hurts is a really good player. And clearly you can win a ton of games and get to a Super Bowl with him as your quarterback. And if he's on, like, he can go toe-to-toe with anyone in the league. But there is no GM in the NFL, including Howie Roseman, who would take Jalen Hurts over Justin Herbert. And that's not a criticism of Jalen Hurts. The 5 guys are pretty simple, self-explanatory. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Justin Herbert. Those 5 guys are in a class of their own. The one older guy, and I mentioned this on Sunday, who can go toe-to-toe with those guys, who's just from a different generation, is Matt Stafford. Just in terms of, like, how do you stop this guy? I would say Lamar's the most unique out of the two because he's by far the best runner, but Josh Allen and Herbert are elite runners. I mean, Justin Herbert is 6'6", 240 pounds. 4.0 student. Like, he's fucking smart. Herbert is a badass. I'm glad he's got Harbaugh because he was awesome. So was Joe. To me, what makes Joe such a great player is, like, he does not have Herbert's physical skills. He can't run like Jalen Hurts. Fucking guy can play football. What a great game by Joe Burrow. This is Jordan Schultz. Someone just forwarded me, I guess, a tweet he had. From an NFC GM, the amount of regret some teams have for not hiring Jim Harbaugh when they had the chance, ... is very real. What I don't understand is in what world last year when he clearly was sniffing around, did people think he wouldn't be good? Like, how could anyone come to the conclusion of, like, hey, Jim Harbaugh, ready to come back to the National Football League. He's ready to leave Michigan. We need a coach. If I had a coach and he wasn't that good, I would have fired him. I mean, the Bears, you drafted him. The Raiders, he got his coaching start with you. There's a famous picture of him in a Raiders polo. He once knocked on Al Davis's door and said, Mr. Davis, I'm going to USD. And Al looked at him and said, you're going to be the head coach of USC? And he said, no, USD, San Diego. Al thought he was on drugs. To me, Jim Harbaugh, I don't see how Mark Davis sleeps well at night. And I get it. He was going through a lot. He'd fired a bunch of coaches. But Jim Harbaugh felt like a Raider. And the Chargers got him. But if I'm Jim Harbaugh, he by far went to the best spot. Because they had Justin Herbert. You would take Justin Herbert. Like, even if the Bears had been interested, I would take the Charger job over the Bears job in a heartbeat. Okay, the NFL season is rolling along and contenders are separating from the pack. But one thing hasn't changed, baby. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, is the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Listen, whether it's fades in the corner of the end zone, running backs breaking big 60-yard runs, we don't care. We just want to bet touchdowns, and DraftKings is the place to do it. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something as simple like a player scoring a touchdown. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your first pick. Here's a reason for new customers to do a touchdown dance of their own. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. As a Chiefs fan, I think we're cooked without Watson at CB2. All our blitzes rely on tight man coverage, and if the blitz doesn't get home, our backup cannot do a thing. Can it be fixed with, say, Patrick Peterson or Xavier Howard, or are we cooked? I would not call Patrick Peterson a man-to-man corner in 2024. Xavier Howard, I don't even have a take on that one. I have to text around. I mean, I would imagine, is he like on the street? Where is he currently? I would imagine he must be, if you're asking, because there's trade deadlines. Xavier Howard, where is he currently? NFL insiders offer details. Oh, he worked out with the Bengals. Yeah, no, those are not fixes. There's nothing much you can do, man. You guys had a pretty special thing these last couple of years and you had to make financial decisions about hiring, or extending. You already hired him because you drafted him. Snead, and once you draft McDuffie, like, you can only allocate so much money to your players. So trading him was not easy. There were some question marks with the knee, but you guys had an elite 1-2 combo. And McDuffie's unique because he's such a good slot receiver. But yeah, it's just a tough spot. You need the offense to be better. You just need to score more points. I would say that's the main key. There's no fixing adding some sweet man-to-man corner at this point. Trade Deebo this offseason for peanuts and sign Jennings to a deal. I like Deebo, but seems like 2021 was the best he was ever going to be. Well, I got good and bad news for you. Is that this offseason, the 49ers signed Juwan Jennings to a contract. So let me pull this up. On March 11th, 2024, the Niners placed a tender on Juwan. On May 29th, Jennings signed a 2-year, $15.4 million contract. I got some bad news for you. I think they took some of Deebo's money and converted it into guaranteed signing bonuses. And I think it's going to be, not that they can't trade him, but I think they regret doing that. Niner fan here. I really think the Niners should fire Kyle and go for Ben Johnson or Mike Vrabel. Here's my issue with this talk. And I get people are emotional. You start losing, you're 5-5, sky's falling. The chances that Ben Johnson is 75% of Kyle Shanahan, based on the history of the NFL, is slim to none. The chances that Ben Johnson can go to a place that just sucks and 7-8 years later have been to multiple Super Bowls, I'm pretty sure Kyle has, I think he's 6 playoff wins. Kyle is 8-4 in the postseason. That's 2 Super Bowl losses and 2 losses in the conference championship game. I mean, we can beat him up, and he's had a rough day and he's had a rough year. But like, Mike Vrabel doesn't boast that resume. He'd be like, oh, well, Kyle's coaching Tom Brady. No, he's coached Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy. That's the games. He's like, those playoff games that he's won it with those 2 guys, Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo. I think we underestimate when everyone's emotionally pissed off, rightfully so. Kyle's pretty freaking good. First time messaging. Is the remaining schedule for the top AFC teams low key very favorable to the Bills? It looks like the only tough team remaining on the Bills' schedule is the Lions, which they could easily lose, but should be big favorites in every other game. Meanwhile, the Chiefs and the Steelers play each other. The Chiefs still play a pretty good Broncos team, Texans, and the Chargers, while the Steelers also play the Eagles, the Ravens, and the Bengals twice. Things come down to the last week or two, but how likely is it the AFC runs through Buffalo off an extra week of rest? It's a good question. I think it's really hard in the NFL, and you're doing it. You feel more confident once we have 10 games into the season to just look at the last 7 games of a good or bad team and go win, 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 loss, win. Or when you look at really bad teams, you just go loss, 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 loss. That's not the way it works. It's going to be a big point of conversation this week and tomorrow when the college football rankings come out about all these SEC teams that have 2 losses. Someone's going to have an awful loss. Someone's not even going to be 10-2 because they're going to be 9-3 because they get upset. It's football, man. So I think it's very, very difficult to play that game. If I was a betting man, I'd still bet on the Chiefs because that one extra game, like the Bills can't screw up in one of their other games. What if Josh just plays worst game of the season against the Patriots? And all of a sudden it's 16-16 headed in the fourth quarter. That's what's hard about football. It's like you have a bad half, all of a sudden you're tied late in the game, and then your running back fumbles. It's like, holy shit, we might lose. It's what makes the sport so fun to talk about because of the uncertainty, even when you think that it's a lock, someone's going to win. So I have a hard time playing that game. I would say if you were looking at the top teams, if I had to rank them, I would still give the edge to Kansas City, but I'd go like 60. I guess if we're doing a pie of the Bills and the Chiefs, I'd probably go 55-45. Watching the Chiefs-Bills game, did you have the feel that they just have the right offensive personnel to attack the Spagnuolo defense? When I was watching, it just felt like at critical downs, the Bills had answers to the blitz. Spags likes to call. They got burned as well as receivers who could win quick in man-to-man coverage. The Bills just took more complete offensively this year to the average viewer eyes. Curious to hear your thoughts. Let's pull up the box score of that game. James Cook has been a game changer for the offense this last year and a half. He is. What did he do yesterday? I mean, he only had 20 yards, but how many catches did he have? He had 5 catches for 7 yards. God, he was not a very productive day. I do think that Khalil Shakir, I think I read that he has more yards after the catch or yards after contact than any receiver in the NFL. He's a really good player. Curtis Samuel had a really good game, 5 catches, 58 yards in the touchdown. He also had the one play where he almost had the one-handed catch, which was sweet. Amari had the sweet over his shoulder catch on the right sideline. Dalton Knox, a good player. He had 4 catches for 40 yards. I think the answers, I hear what you're saying about guys that can win quick. The question earlier, the Chiefs DBs aren't quite as good as last year because Snead's gone and now Watson's hurt. But I just think I think Josh is more their kryptonite in the sense of like he just plays really well against them. Like we have a lot of data, like he's comfortable playing against them. You can't say that about Lamar Jackson. You can't say that about Brock Purdy. You can't say that about other guys that they played in these big games. And Josh Allen yesterday, 27 of 40 for 260 yards. He was not sacked, and he also ran for 55 yards. I forget the exact number in the playoff game. I think he ran for 70 yards in the games last year the Chiefs won. I guess it was technically this year in the second round. So let me pull the box score on that. Chiefs, Bills, playoff game. Game recap. Player stats. Mahomes, Bills. Yeah. So he was 12 for 55 running yesterday. And in the divisional round, he was 12 for 72. Like, so he's throwing, and in the divisional game where they only won by 3 points, he didn't have as good of a game throwing. He only threw for 180 yards. But if he's going to get you an extra 70 yards on the ground, like that's a pretty big swing. I think Josh Allen with his legs is a major problem. Like that's the thing with Lamar. In theory, his legs should hurt the Chiefs, but or the Steelers, but he's not as potent running the ball against them. Yet for some reason, Josh, who some games you watch and it's like he doesn't even need to run. In these games, when he has to run, he makes huge plays with his legs. You guys know me. I'm a Josh Allen stan. So I think he's just an exceptional player. And I think Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo would tell you that. He's the total fucking package. And he's really, really hard to play. And when he's on, just like the other group that he's surrounded by, Herbert, Burrow, Lamar, and Mahomes, when you catch those guys and they're dialed, Godspeed. Buckle up because it's going to be a long day. Appreciate everyone listening. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.